Jere Longman of the New York Times wrote a fascinating article a couple of weeks ago about a study at Southern Methodist University, a biomechanical study of Usain Bolt's stride. And this study has been Usain Bolt's stride has been studied for a while as people try to figure out what exactly is, what is the key, what the keys are, I should say, to his dominance. It's a fascinating article, and it raises the notion that Usain Bolt, who, of course, from his autobiography or from his biography, suffers from scoliosis and actually has one leg shorter than the other. It raises the question as to whether or not Usain Bolt, as to whether or not that, I'm going to call it handicap, bad word, but whether or not that abnormality, if maybe a better word, hasn't actually helped Usain Bolt as opposed to, in some ways, hindered him. It's a fascinating topic, and we're very pleased to be joined by the author of the article, Jere Longman of the New York Times. Jere, thanks so much for joining us. This is
Sure.
It's fascinating because we've all tried to figure out, I think, what makes Usain Bolt so good, and I'm intrigued by the idea of, instead of studying his stride and sort of how the leg swings, et cetera, it seems to me this study focuses more on the force he's actually imparting with his stride.
Yes, so these biomechanics researchers at Southern Methodist University in Dallas, Texas, were basically working on a new system. Usually to determine force, you have to get athletes in a lab and to run on a special treadmill that has force plates. But they have a system they've developed where you can predict force from watching high-speed video. So they were watching this video, and then they noticed that Bolt does something odd, that he strikes the ground with one leg 14% more power than the other leg, and then the other leg stays on the ground 14% longer than the other leg, which the conventional wisdom is that should slow you down if you have an asymmetrical slide or a stride or uneven stride. But it appears that in Bolt's case, the theory is that he naturally sort of slid into this uneven stride to compensate for scoliosis and one leg, being shorter than the other. That it's just sort of a natural optimization for him. And even more interesting is that if he actually ran more symmetrically or had an even stride, that he wouldn't be faster and he might be slower because it would be an unnatural stride for him.
Yeah, it's he's a fascinating study in a lot of ways, but I really get the sense, Jere, that when long after he retires, long after he stopped running, people are still going to be trying to look at why he was so successful, aren't they? Like, he really is. In terms of body size, and we've heard Usain Bolt talk about how he's not always great out of the blocks, but it's such an anomaly. I don't, and as you point out in the column, I mean, it's not that he doesn't speed up more than his competitors at the end of the race, and we actually had Anson Henry, a Canadian sprinter, on talking about that. And I made the point to him about, well, I don't know if I've ever really seen Usain Bolt run his hardest from start to finish. And he disagreed, and he made the point you did. It's not that he speeds up more than his competitors at the end of a race. It's he slows down less.
Right. So at the end of a 100-meter race is an optical illusion, in essence. Nobody can sort of accelerate for an entire 100-meter race. So if you watch these guys, they run the first 40 meters or so. Their heads are not even all the way up because they're trying to postpone their top-end speed, and they hit their top-end speed 60, 70 meters. And the trick is to sort of hold on to that speed. So Bolt is 6'5". He has some advantages. He actually, at that height, still starts almost as explosively as shorter runners. But he's so tall at 6'5" that he only needs 41 strides to complete 100 meters compared to 44 or 45 or 48 strides needed by other people. So he's able to hold on to his top-end speed. So as you say, when it looks like somebody is speeding up at the end, but in essence, what they're really doing is they're slowing down slower. And that's where, those final 50 meters or 40 meters, that's where he seems to be, well ahead of anybody else.